Matt, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
It's all right. Now, first off, we've got to ask, how would you like your brew?
Builders.
Oh,
Builders brew.
classic.
Yeah, no sugar, none of that. Just a little bit of splash of milk, oat milk now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Is that from being down here too long, do you think?
I think so. Yeah, I hate to say it. I think my dad would shoot me for that. But,
yeah, I don't know if oat milk's quite reached the north yet.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I just can't do milk anymore.
Okay, yeah,
like,
I
not from the
cow. No, no dairy left. I'm similar to you, although I do have a sweetener in my tea now.
Oh,
Yeah,
little Splendor.
Just a little one, just a tiny little Splendor. So Matt, tell us a bit about your childhood in the north.
Yeah, I mean, I'm from Leeds originally, and went to Meanwood CAV Primary School, where I did.
To Meanwood.
Yeah, come on, Meanwood. And I actually had the most amazing primary school in terms. Actually, when I think back of it, in terms of the arts and they had a choir then. It was Mrs. Sanderson, Helen Sanderson was my primary school head teacher, and she ran the choir, and because it was a CAB primary school, so we had we obviously had hymn assembly and all of that. But I think I kind of got exposed to the arts quite quickly as a kid, and I remember one of my childhood friends, Jodie Dixon. She went to Stagecoach, and in year 2 we did Shock Joseph.
Of course, the classic primary school show.
That really little show that no one's ever done. We did that, and from there got the bug, and it was her mum that turned around to mine and said, "Oh, Matt seemed to really enjoy it. You should come to Stagecoach as well." And that's where I met a wonderful woman called Anita Adams, who I have to give so much testament to being here, because her and another woman called Kerry, I think were my real rocks in terms of launching where I went, because Anita served a little bit of time on it's like a children's development council, but also within that she really pushed for the arts. She also runs Leeds GNS and does a lot, and she does so much up there now as well. Get her down here. She'll be great for this.
Please join us, Anita.
She just really advocated for it, and I think I was very lucky. My dad was a stay-at-home dad. I'm not sure if that's the term. I don't know.
The term
whatever
now,
it is now. And so he did a lot of carting me to and from everything, and I was an Amdram kid through and through.
It's the lifeblood, isn't it? Of the North.
It really is. So again, met people. Another kind of northern director called Louise Dennison, who
I know Lou Dennison very well.
The famous
a real legend in the northern scene.
Yeah, she really is. So I did a lot of kind of stuff for her, and then did actually a lot in York with York Stage Musicals, and kind of toed and frommed all the I was a little Amdram slut.
Yeah. I know
the Amtram
feeling.
Bicycle.
Yeah.
So that was me. Really just outed myself there. And that was kind of my real kind of lead into it. I think I knew I had a little spell when I was a teenager and went, I'm going to be a lawyer. How dull.
Well, it's the fear, isn't it? Suddenly you're like, well, no one else I know is doing this.
Yeah, so. and I go, I was very lucky in that, so it's a normal state primary school, and ended up going to Leeds Grammar, or it's now the Grammar School at Leeds. Yes. Such a change in name. But on a funded place for the arts, and it was Barry Cryer who did that scholarship there. So I was in a very fortunate position that I could go there. But both my parents were teachers, so they were all about the education. Yeah. But I left there at 16 to go to Leeds City College, kind of with the sole focus of wanting to do all the Amdram stuff, and did a BTEC in performing arts. And when I left that school, I had all of the teachers doing it's 1 in a million to make it onto the West End, Matthew.
Yes.
So
I think it's such a bizarre thing to put on young people of going you might not. I also think like most people who probably train to be a doctor, they're not going to become the world's best brain surgeon, but that doesn't matter because the reason they want to do it is because they're going to change something in someone's life.
Yeah, and I think it's so difficult because I totally understand they feel a responsibility to you as a student, and at the time, a young person that they're trying to go what is realistic, But I also go, your job as an educator is to inspire, and like, surely you should be pushing. If you go, someone has an ability for something, push that, try it, because I could have maybe gone and been a lawyer and probably earned a lot more money, but would I have been as happy doing that?
Yeah,
I don't know. So yeah, I think by about 16, I had the sole focus of I'm going to drama school. That's what I want to do. So yeah, as soon as I went to college, kind of did all the Amdram, went to college, and then auditioned, and I ended up at Urdang, which actually was like my wild card. Someone just suggested it. Went there and then graduated, and the rest is sort of
history. Yeah, I think what I think is interesting when we talk about like the educators we have, like especially up north, and how they inspire us. I remember my primary school teacher as fondly as you do.
Yeah.
Shout out to Julie Boldy, who completely...
Come on, my Julie.
There's I think a real heart in they're aware that it isn't easy.
Yeah.
It's not on our doorstep. Most kids who get the chance to have a career as a child, especially in the arts, you've got to live within however many miles of the M25, and we just don't have that.
I had that very exactly that. I mean, I was very lucky that I did as a kid do some professional work, kind of through Stagecoach and their kind of agency at the time, like Shakespeare for Kids. I did their Macbeth tour that they did, and I kind of did all the northern venues where they kind of took local kids, and I remember it came to they were going to film it, and funnily enough, they filmed it down in Horsham, and I remember the reason I got to, because they were like, "Oh, we really want to take you to do this," and me being like, 10-year-old me or whatever, I went,
the best thing ever.
Cracking. I'll earn that 20 quid that it was on the big bucks. But then they turned around, they're like, sorry, we're going to use someone local to London. Yeah. And then me, 10-year-old brain goes, why? I could have driven down there. I could have got a train. And I think that was almost, in hindsight, okay, that's the first time I went, oh my God, that's the rejection for some reason that is out of your control.
Yeah, completely.
There's nothing on what you can do, and it is just a factor beyond that. And I think the first real acknowledgement of a barrier of going, I am up here, and what is going on is down there. And I think probably, if I really deep dive it as I go, that's probably the first moment where you go, I need to be in London.
Yes.
And at 10-year-old me, I wouldn't have thought that at all, but I think it
plants
does
a seed
exactly
of going,
that.
I can't do this within an hour of home.
Yeah.
I can't do this within kind of easy driving distance. It's not like going to Stagecoach on a weekend. Yeah. And my mum's just going to drop me off and I'll be there for a couple of hours and then I'll come home. It suddenly becomes this thing of going, well, there's however many miles between me and this dream, and no one seems to be going, well, how do we get you there?
Yeah.
It's not, and I think that's what's maybe changing now for the better, is that there are more people going, how do we ensure that young people in the North are going, okay, so I can get there?
And I think it was really interesting. I remember when it was the West Yorkshire Playhouse, now the Leeds Playhouse, when they did Loserville, I think I was about 16 at the time, and funnily enough, my MD on Back to the Future, Jim Henson, was the MD for that. And I remember when they did open calls, because obviously it was a YMT show that then developed. Yeah. And I remember they did open calls in Leeds, and I remember auditioning for it. And my friend Sarah got it and then came down to London with it. And I think, again, that was the first thing of going, oh my God, it can be done. But then if you really look at it, you go, I think everyone else was a London cast that came up to Leeds for a little bit and
for a bit
then
and then went.
back down to London to do it in town. And I think since then, again, I've been like, how, as a northerner, do you get in on these prestigious venues, which we have up north, but it's still somehow London-centric?
Yes. Yeah. Well, you know, I was really lucky. I trained in Leeds at a brand new course that they did at the College of Music, which is now the Conservatoire.
Yeah.
But again, that, to my knowledge, within West Yorkshire, apart from the great school SLP, was like the second place you could train.
Yeah.
Within West Yorkshire. And so, of course, the top of the list is I've got to go straight to London and I've got to train. So when you got to Urdang, how was the adjustment from living a northern life to suddenly kind of being in the heart of it? And you know, one of the schools that's, you know, it's got hundreds of accolades and so many alumni that have worked so consistently throughout the industry. How was it kind of adjusting to a very new life?
It was huge. I mean, I think I always have and always will probably consider myself a city boy, because even with Leeds, you know, it's a big city.
It is,
and I think at the start it was, I always think back to, there was a moment in Leeds City College where we did like an improvisation. It was improvise where you want to be in 5 years' time or something. That classic. And I remember me and my friend Alice at the time did an improv, sat in a flat, like, that we'd finished training or whatever, and we're off to do our West End show. And so when I was down in London, I think my first thought was, I was like, oh my God,
I've made it.
This is it. Like, I think it was also interesting. I remember going to the open day at Urdang, and my dad, who has always been really supportive, but he is a classic northern working man, and I think through Amdram and through all that, like, suddenly gained even more appreciation for what it was. But he was musical and he's artistic as well, and like he played double bass and all of that. So he got it, but it was the first time going to that open day. He watched something and he went, "I get why you want to be here."
It clicked, because all of a sudden, the kind of breadth of opportunity is in front of you,
and you're seeing a standard across the board. Going, and of course they do it at demo classes. If they're doing a ballet class, they pick all their best ballet dancers to show. But he was suddenly going, this is the level you want to be at,
and what you can achieve. Because it's, you know, it's there for you, and you can't ignore the fact that the standard is high.
And I think not necessarily this is right, but it suddenly felt, oh, this is achievable in this setting. And I remember moving down, and obviously the novelty of the tube wears off in about 5 minutes. And you go from, I'm on the tube, to I'm on the tube again.
And if my headphones die, I'm stuck.
Very that. And what am I going to catch from this poll today? So that all wore off quite quickly and became the norm. And like each year I was at Urdang, I think I moved closer and closer, so I didn't have to get the tube. It just suddenly all felt more and more real, and actually became normal very quickly. And it's interesting because I kind of go, if people ask me, like, do you think you'll go back north? I go, unfortunately, at the moment, I go, no.
No, because the work is here.
It's here, and I need to be. And like, whilst I do know people, like I know writers, like performer writers and stuff, who have spent some time back up north because they've gone, I don't need to be in London the whole time. I can come down to audition, I can do that. But I still go, but you're having to come down to, like, why is it that we have such a hub of fantastic northern venues, like the Leeds Playhouse, like the Royal Exchange in Manchester, like
Crucible,
all of these like fantastic venues, but still feel the need. But I suppose what is hard is because everyone so systemically has felt that the need is to go down south. That is where everyone is. So I think that's almost another barrier that is sort of created in itself.
When the offices of the people who, you know, hold the monopoly on what gets made most of the times in London all live and work down here, there's less of an inclination for them to go, well, maybe we should hold a day in Manchester or Leeds or Liverpool and just see. And I think that barrier is something that is bizarre, I think, when we're sitting here feeling like we didn't really think about it that much as kids. but it was there.
Yeah.
And it's still there kind of like 10, 15 years later, even though so much has changed, you know, like the Brit School's moving to Bradford, you know, they're getting a venue there. There's so many more training opportunities opening up in the north. But still at the end of that opportunity, I remember when it came to doing our showcase, we held one in Leeds and it was great. But we still had to come to London and do a day in London.
Because I bet you they went, who's going to come to Leeds?
Yeah, yeah. And we were really lucky that there was a few casting directors and some great kind of Leeds-based creatives who came. But for the chance for us to get seen by agents who, you know, are able to contact those casting directors that have their foot in the door for work that's made in London, we had to come down here. When was the first time that you ventured back up north for work? Was it a long time after you graduated? What was kind of that time like after graduating? Did you ever get a chance to kind of go back up north to work?
Yeah, I mean, so I was quite lucky in that from graduating about a year afterwards, because I graduated in 2015. In 2016, I did La Cage aux Folles.
Which I saw you in.
Ah.
In Leeds.
Thank you very much. The short one.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I got to venture back up to Leeds,
Yeah.
and that was really special. And I think, and it's interesting because it's actually, I've since then done other tours, but it is the only time that I have toured to Leeds.
To Leeds, wow.
Like I've done obviously Bradford and all that, like surrounding areas, but Leeds itself is the only time and to perform in the Grand, which as much as not really a producing house, as much like that's my first memory of like going to see like Footloose tour there, and it's
a beautiful like to stand on the stage and look out is it's one of the most magical experiences I think you can have.
It's a beautiful venue, and so to go back there and perform was really cool. And I remember, and actually my primary school head teacher came to see it, and so that was really special. And then actually over the pandemic, York Stage Musicals, the amateur company that I did a lot for, they produced a panto. They were also producing other things. They were really trying to make work over the pandemic. And so there was the year where we like tier system and all of that. And York somehow remained quite steadfast for a while until it dropped like just before New Year. And so I managed to do like a small panto there, which again was really special to kind of go back up to the north. But what I hate to say is that there's not really been. There was one TV thing that I came back up north for. That I'm still to this day not bitter that I didn't get. Apparently it's too mature to play a 17-year-old. Rude. But that's the only thing that I've had to come up north to audition for, and I go, I don't mind coming back up north because I see my parents. I get but that is in 10 years. Of
wonderful
auditioning. Thank you so much. I'll pay you later. In 10 years, that's the only time that I've come up north looking for work. And like I hate it, like I'm kind of writing something at the moment, and as a northern writer, I go as a northern creative,
who had to leave the city that I love and that has such great spaces and opportunities. It wasn't viable for me to have a career here, so I had to leave. And I think there's probably a yearning in all Northerners, like, go back and contribute to that, because it inspired us so much. Like, my first job as a kid performing was at the Leeds Playhouse. And, like,
what was it?
It was The Wizard of Oz in 2005.
Nice. Lovely.
And some of the actors in that now, like, I've, like, reconnected with, who were, my age now, back then. And they've all been down here creating careers for themselves, because it was great that they had that opportunity, but it was for 4 months, and that's not enough time, and not, there's never enough money in these jobs to kind of survive, and that yearning for contributing is huge.
Is that I think some of the most artistically creative work I've seen has been born out of like Leeds Playhouse, like
100%,
like such innovative, cool productions. Like I remember it was actually their Lion Witch in the Wardrobe, not the recent one. I mean, I saw it and I think it's fantastic. But I remember, I think it was like 2004.
I remember that production too. Yeah.
With the staircases and everything.
Yeah.
I was like, this is so... I remember as a kid just being... It was magical.
Yeah.
And so for a venue that can create such interesting work, I go, why is it so difficult to
have access to
it?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a real shame, but hopefully with this work that we're
Fingers
doing,
crossed.
we can really change that. Did you find when you moved down that you were able to connect with many other Northerners who'd kind of had to make the leap to come down here?
Yes and no. I think it was interesting because like going to Urdang, there were people in my year that were from like Wakey and had been to Kappa and all of that. And I found the first thing that I found moving down to London was that if you were a Northerner, it instantly made everything you said was hysterical.
Hilarious, yeah.
And I was like, oh, no, I'm not being funny. I'm actually
just how I speak.
Just telling you the truth right now. But great.
Yeah.
That was one. And then it was interesting because one of my best friends, Robin Grant, who now writes and as well, she went to East 15 and I've always like kept in contact with her ever since. And she's just done the wonderful Unfortunate tour, wrote and directed that. But it's interesting because I know like she's gone back, come down, like, and just there's not an easy connection of going. This is until now. There's not that easy sort of look around and go, oh, there's this that I can connect with other Northern. Like I've always kind of said, like I'd love to get to a stage in my career, not just as a performer, but as a creative, where I can start something that matches people together.
Yes.
I think it's the one thing a friend of mine once said. They went to New York and they do it so differently there, and everyone networks laterally rather than like horizontally up and down, because they just go, well, if you're trying to network up, everyone's got their teams.
Yeah.
You network laterally and you all come up together. And I think from now writing as well and kind of working as a creative, I feel like that's what I started to do, and it's really exciting to be in a position where I feel like that's starting to happen, and people that you're meeting along the way, you're kind of networking up together. I think as a Northern creative, it would be great if there was a space that Northern creatives can, and you compare people and go, hey, this is a Northern-based producer, this is a Northern-based choreographer, MD, writer, director.
Yeah.
Let's
merge together. Yeah. And I think what I find sometimes quite interesting is when you kind of deep dive into it, there's so much going on creatively in the North. And I find it baffling sometimes how little we kind of know about it. And, you know, I no matter where you live in the UK, I think you'll know what's going on in the West End.
Yes.
It's out there, it's available to you at the snap of a finger. But kind of these like regional hubs that have birthed some of the most iconic creative people that we know, there doesn't seem to be that same level of what's the word?
So traction behind
it.
Like...
Yeah. The same level of traction, and what I think what you were talking about there about that kind of lateral networking is really beautiful, because when we're growing up in the North and you get that, well, you know, it's the 1% who makes it to the big leagues, and you go, well, if that's the end goal, then, and it's maybe not what is on the cards for me, then what else can I do? And having that ability to go, well, maybe I'll meet someone who also lives in the same city as me who wants to make something. That alone might inspire more young people to stay.
Yeah.
And not that I'm not saying you can't move to London and have a career in the arts, but we're almost, I think, doing a disservice to that young Northern talent by going, well, you've got to get out of here because otherwise you've got no chance. But actually sitting down and going, well, who might live on my street, who feels the same way as me, I think is so important. If you could go back and speak to 6-year-old Matt, who's just done Joseph. Were you Joseph?
No, I was a dancer in Benjamin's Calypso.
Okay, which is, yeah.
Hula skirt and all.
Hula skirt and all, a great moment to be in.
Who'da knew?
If you could look back and speak to Matt at that point, is there any advice you'd give about how to navigate what's to come?
Stick with ballet and learn acro. No. The first is that it is possible.
Yeah.
Don't give up on that. Don't become a lawyer. That's unless you want to, you can absolutely become a lawyer. Yeah, stick with it and trust your own voice. Like, you have a voice. And I think I was quite lucky in that, actually, even probably as a 6-year-old, I think I was one of those kids that I would swear black is white. Yeah. And my dad had so many pains with me being like that. So I kind of knew my mind quite quickly. And I'd almost say trust that. Yeah. And know it is possible. Yeah.
That's really beautiful. Yeah. No, but I think being able to say it is possible is like the first thing that we need to lead with. Because without that, so many of us would have ended up still probably up north being lawyers, or I'd have probably ended up being a chef. Yeah, it's my retirement plan. You know, without the Mrs. Sandersons and without the Mrs. Baldies going, you know, let's do this. It is possible. It would be a shame that so many young people wouldn't have that same opportunity. To wrap up, because we've talked so much about those amazing teachers, is there something you'd like to say to Mrs. Sanderson now?
You're fantastic. Mrs. Sanderson is fantastic. And really, I mean, to this day, she'll send me a happy birthday message. And also I'd have to say to Anita Adams as a thank you, both of them, for always kind of pushing and believing, and everybody needs someone like that in their life to do that.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for
joining
us, Matt. This has been so lovely. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. We'll be back soon.